Hello everyone, I'm Tim from Tim's PC, and in this video I wanted to talk about power supplies. So there seems to be a lot of misconceptions about power supplies and what sort of power supply you need for your computer. So I just want to bust a few myths straight up, okay? So number one, having a bigger power supply in your computer doesn't mean your computer becomes more powerful. It's not how computer components work. So your system hardware that you have installed, there's sort of a maximum amount of power that can flow through those components before they start to literally catch on fire and circuits start to melt away under the stress of it. Okay, so even if you overclock, even if you use it intensively, etc., there's a maximum amount of load that's going to be drawn from the power supply. Bigger power supplies don't push out more power to your computer. It's not a bigger engine, not like a car or something like that. A power supply supplies the amount of power that the components require. It does not send the components any more power than the power that they request. That's its function. It takes AC current from the wall socket in your house and converts it into DC current. And it gives out that current at exactly the amount that the components are requiring. It doesn't send out any more power than that. There are little capacitors all over the motherboard. There are these little things that look like little water tanks, and a water tank is a perfect metaphor for what they are. They store electrical charge and give it out to the components in very, very precise levels. So these capacitors, there are capacitors. So would it surprise you to know that capacitors have a capacity? So there's only so much power that can be forced into your system. If your system only requires 450 watts of power, putting an 850 watt power supply in it is not going to give you any additional performance at all. The only improvement from going with a bigger power supply, and the way it scales is it's worth going a certain amount bigger, but if you go too far, then it actually starts to bite you on the ass, believe it or not. Okay, so there's the rational reason why you would go with a bigger power supply is about efficiency. It's got nothing to do with how much power your computer's going to run. It's not going to run that much better. But what's going to happen is the efficiency of the power supply, because like I said, it's drawing AC current from the wall socket in your home and converting it to DC current, which it gives out exactly the amount of power that the components require. So in that conversion process, there is efficiency, and that's what you're going to pay for. So if you can get your power supply to run at a certain ideal percentage capacity most of the time, then you're going to hit this point where it's at peak efficiency. And if you can stay at that peak efficiency for that power supply, then it's going to mean your electricity bill is slightly lower. But for normal users, this is not generally something that comes into play if you've just got one computer in the house. If you've got like 5 or 6 computers, or you're running a business, you've got an office with 15 to 30 computers or more, then yeah, absolutely, this power efficiency thing starts to scale and starts to make economic sense to invest in. But for an average person at home, not really a big deal. So I'm going to share my screen with you now, and we're going to key in a computer to a power supply calculator, and I'm going to run you through my rationale. So, and this is the rationale that I apply to any PC that I build. So, alright, let's crush some myths here, okay? Alright, so let's make this a bit bigger so everyone can see what I'm going to key in here. So we're going to go with the expert version of this. So for our CPU, we're going to go 1, and we're going to go with a Ryzen 5800X. and we're gonna have it overclocked at 4.5, and we're even gonna up the V-core to 1.4. So see here, I'm even overclocking it here. 100% utilization. Memory, we've got 4 sticks of, hell, give me 64 video cards, NVIDIA. How about a 3090? 3090 OC. Storage, so let's say we've got heaps of storage. No, well, let's just chuck on, let's just say need some Wi-Fi as well. Got gaming keyboards, gaming mouse hooked up. Other devices, yeah, well, we've got 60 centimeters, 30 centimeter strips. It's got 4 30 centimeter strips, and what's this? We got one, definitely, oh sorry, fan controller, yeah, fan controller device, fans. Let's say we got 9 fans. Liquid cooling kit. Let's go with a Corsair H150i RGB Pro. Always on. Always on. Okay, so how big a power supply do you think that you're going to need for this build? So just think about it now, right? Think about how big a power supply you would think for a high-end build like this. Let's calculate it. It's going to use 796 watts, 850 watts, and that's with all of this stuff. So if we were to reset this, so this is a pretty extreme example. I've got everything overclocked and overvolted and shit like that. Not everyone's computer looks like that. So let's have a look at someone who's got a more typical computer. So let's go with an i5 11, sorry, a 10400F. Okay, we can't overclock this. So we got 16 gigabytes of RAM, and we've got an RTX 3070. We've got an M2 drive, and we've got a hard drive. Don't have an optical drive. We've got a Wi-Fi card. We've got a gaming keyboard, gaming mouse. Other devices, yeah, we've got a fan controller, and we've got a couple of LED strips there. Fans, we've got 6. Liquid cooling kit, yes. We've just got like a Corsair H100i. Always on, always on. So a build like this, how much power do you think we need for this? Just have a think. Let's calculate it. 431 watts. Recommended power supply 481. So what would someone like me recommend for this particular computer here? So the way that I work it out is I would take this 431 watts and I would calculate. So we got 431 So I'm going to multiply that by 0.2. It's 86. So we're going to go 431 plus 86. So that gives me 517. So I'm going to round that up to 550 watts. And so 550 watts is what I would recommend for someone running this. However, if we had a card that was one of the OC ones, we can key that in. Calculate. Let's push it up a little bit, but not too much. We can't adjust this for the CPU on this build. So, and if we wanted to have a look, so what would happen if we made it 9 fans and a bigger RGB cooler? It would come up at 465 and 515. So let's work it out. 465. How much wattage should we use? So 465 times 0.2, extra 93 plus 465, 558. Always round up, so round that up to 600. So we do a 600 watt power supply here, and that would be adequate. It's going to be fine for a 3070 with this configuration. With 9 fans now, we could even add some more memory to it. Let's do that. Push it up a little bit. It's not going to change the overall recommendation. So that's pretty much how anyone who builds PCs calculates the power consumption required for a build. So we've already taken into consideration things like efficiency and the overclocking of your system and all of the components together. So if you get a recommendation from someone and we say, yeah, this power supply is adequate, we're basing it on numbers and facts. We're not basing it on just random conjecture and stuff like that. We're basing it on some sort of objective, either experience with the products and knowing what the configuration is from personal experience, or from calculating it out on one of the many different power supply calculator tools that you can use. So I find this one here is relatively accurate, especially when I apply my deviation to the final result down here. That's what I always do for my builds, so I'm always confident that the customer's got enough power with the power supply that is included. So I would say to anyone, don't spend too much on your power supply, and maybe think about spending a little bit more on your monitor, for example. That's definitely going to get you a bit more performance. You're going to be staring at that screen all the time. You're not going to be staring at your power supply. So just one thing to consider there. So I hope you enjoyed this video about power supplies. I hope you learned a few of the basics about how they work and what sort of issues to consider when choosing a power supply for your computer. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.